Welcome back. You're watching Nation Tonight. There's a new trend in Pakistan. The country's air hostesses are running away. Now, as bizarre as it sounds, the flight attendants take a flight as crew members but never return to Pakistan. They end up staying back in other countries, mostly nowadays Canada. Take, for example, this latest case of Maryam Raza of the Pakistan International Airlines, or the PIA. Maryam boarded as a crew member from Islamabad. She was lodged at a hotel room in Toronto, and the next day, when she did not report to work for her return flight to Karachi, authorities found her uniform and a note in her room that said, "Thank you, PIA." Now, an appreciation note like this is what an airline would expect from a flyer. But clearly, Pakistan's air hostesses seem to think otherwise. But remember, Maryam isn't the first case in Pakistan. This year, PIA has already seen an employee ditch them, and last year, 7 PIA staffers disappeared in Canada to seek asylum. While the PIA blames it on Canada's liberal asylum program, the airline's situation isn't all that great either. It's a government-owned carrier, and economically, it's not doing so well. It has been battling financial and credibility losses. And Pakistan itself, we know, isn't doing great economically either. So is it Canada's liberal asylum rules or Pakistan's own inefficiency to retain its citizens? Let me take this across to my guest tonight. On the broadcast, I'm joined by Patikrit Pain. He's a geopolitical analyst, and Faraz Saeed. He's a journalist. He's joining us from Pakistan. Good evening and welcome to both of you, gentlemen. Faraz, let me first ask you what's happening in your country. Why are air hostesses going to other countries, landing there and not returning?
Thank you, Shreya, for having me. First of all, there's an obvious straight answer to this latest vanishing problem that PIA is facing is because of bad economic conditions in Pakistan. Of course, there's political uncertainty. And mind you, Maryam, who just vanished in Canada, was working for PIA for the past 15 years. So it's not that she planned to join PIA just because she wanted to vanish in Canada. She was working in PIA for the past 15 years. Now, we all understand that most of the Pakistanis in the past and in the future as well will do that because, again, there are the economic conditions are dying down. Political uncertainty is mounting. And, of course, the average wage is falling, the real wage is falling. Now, this is also true for all of the other countries in the region as well. Asia, per se, has been witnessing a large surge in illegal immigrants flying away from their countries. For instance, if we note down, just a year ago, Pakistan faced the worst tragedy when Greek boat tragedy occurred, where 300 Pakistanis drowned off the coast of Greece. Now, it is also true for Indians as well. About 96,000 Indians were, caught and expelled from the U.S. borders just in 2023. Now, a lot of people take the Dunki route, as we know in the common language, because, again, a lot of the natives want to send their young ones to those countries to live off from the remittances, because, again, the amount of the prices of livelihoods in these countries are so high that they're unable to live the dream that they wanted to do. So the American dream or the Canadian dream is somewhat a refuge to them. So therefore, the surge in the latest cases, primarily in Pakistan, is because of all these factors that are in play.
Okay. You talked about the Asian scenario for us. Probably Pakistan has one of the worst scenarios, considering the fact that just back in 2023, the country saw a record of over 8 lakh people leaving the country. And these are highly skilled professionals that I'm talking about. But Patikrit, do you resonate with what Faraz is saying?
Shreya, Faraz is trying to rationalize the whole issue. But let me tell you, India, when it comes to economic condition, there's no comparison. I mean, the market capitalization of Tata Group is larger than the GDP of Pakistan. Well, the market capitalization of Tata is $365 billion. and that of Pakistan is $341 billion. India's GDP is almost $4 trillion. So let's not say that all countries are facing the same situation, and that's the reason you have something like this. So, Maryam Raza actually thanked the Pakistan International Airlines because at least it is flying to Canada. For most of Europe and United Kingdom, PIA is banned for a fake pilot scam and a scandal that they had. So there is a scandal with pilots also. Like you have fake people, masquerading as pilots in PIA. So let me tell you the condition of Pakistan. It has an economic crisis. Everybody knows that. It has a civilian strife. It doesn't know who the prime minister is. It's almost 3 weeks that you have an election. It has sectarian crisis. It has all kinds of crises, and the real flaw lies in the structural governance system of Pakistan, where even if you put in $200 billion, that money will vanish away because you have institutional weakness, you have corruption, you have crony capitalism, and you have a system which is completely reluctant to refine and reform itself. In the last 2 years, more than 20,000 Pakistanis invested $10 billion in UAE and Qatar instead of putting the money in Pakistan. Whereas if we talk about India, its foreign exchange reserve, in spite of the difficult situations of post-pandemic situation, was always around $600 billion. So I would rather say, Faraz, with all due respect, let's not rationalize. Yes, some Indians also have this fascination to go abroad. It has nothing to do with the economic condition of India, which has emerged as the 5th largest economy of the world and has been defined by IMF as a bright spot in the dark horizon. The same IMF from which you are begging for a $1 billion loan. With all due respect, no disrespect to you, but frankly speaking, Pakistan requires a lot of course correction. Till the time it has its own utility as a war fighting machinery for the West, it survived because the money was flowing from United States. But Pakistan, for me, has always been an unviable economy. When its utility for war got over after Afghanistan war got over, Pakistan today is in a bad situation. It's highly unlikely they'll get another loan from World Bank or IMF. At most, they can roll over the existing loans they have. They are in a
what Pathikrit is saying, Faraz, is the reality, isn't it? That the economy is in shambles, you're dependent on IMF. There is a lot of disillusionment among the citizens, and therefore nobody, at least most of the professionally skilled people, don't want to waste their energy, time and resources in Pakistan when they see that there is no light there, no future there for them.
Now, of course, I started off with admitting the fact that Pakistan's economy is in bad taste. There's a bleak future to it as well, and we are, relying on the IMF loan. Now, no, that's not $1 billion. Now, Pakistan plans to get into a $6 billion loan program. Now, I want to, clarify a few things. There was this Twitter trend. A lot of people were quoting how Tata's company's valuation was as big as Pakistan's entire GDP. It's like comparing apples to oranges. I mean, I'm a student of economics, and I understand what capital valuation, what company's valuation is, and how GDP is a different thing. Because again, Pakistan's GDP, so GDP is all about what you produce in a particular year, not the entire valuation of the assets. I'm sure it's going to be quite bigger than Tata's entire valuation. To oranges, but however, I quoted Greek boat tragedy, where 300 Pakistanis were trying to flee away from Pakistan to, of course, towards Europe and Canada or America for a brighter future. Because again, a lot of Pakistanis are in miserable conditions. A lot of Pakistanis are facing the challenge of inflation, massive inflation. Now, I also want to clarify how India, being the 5th largest economy, doesn't justify the fact that their lower strata of PI. I just want to state one example, and of course, you'll have a limited time on this chapter. The fact is, if Ambani comes to my household income will suddenly rise. But when Ambani leaves my household's average income will suddenly fall. That is the fact what India is facing. The Ambanis, the Tatas are basically raising the average per capita income of the entire country.
Faraz, we are not talking about India and the Ambanis here. We are talking about what's happening in Pakistan and what Pakistan is doing to retain its citizens. You keep coming back to the point of India, but we're not talking about the Ambanis or India or... we're not talking about all of that. We're talking about your country and what's happening there. What is the government there doing? You haven't even able to choose a
Post
prime
Shreya,
minister in the last few weeks. You had an election there. That has not happened. But okay, if we're talking about the future of Pakistani citizens, let's not talk about the future. Let's talk about their present. What is Pakistan government doing for the present of their citizens? How are
now if
you
I want, of
how are you planning
course.
to retain your citizens who want to move out of the country?
So, my friend, my Patrick was absolutely right. The government is in shambles. It's about 3 weeks that the elections have undergone, and I hope that in couple of days we are able to elect the prime minister. The first thing or the priorities of the current government setup is not to make economic conditions better, because again, as soon as they enter new IMF program, there is going to be inflation, there is going to be a massive tax rate hike, and of course there's going to be a massive outflow of Pakistanis, because again, current economic conditions at least in the 5 years is not good, and the people of Pakistan are of course hopeless right now. And of course, the air hostess who flew away after 15 years and decided to leave a good paying job. Of course, she was having a job. She was certainly flying around the world, but she decided to leave the airline is because she thought that there's a bleaker future in Pakistan and there's a brighter future in Canada. And of course, there are liberal policies in Canada as well.
So that is
I mean,
something
that's the official
that needs
statement
introspection. Of course, you said it yourself. You know, leaving a highly paying job is not an easy decision, and leaving your own country
that
is also not one. But Patikrit, you wanted to make a point. Please go ahead, and then I'm going to wrap this up.
Shreya, two things. Most Pakistanis who are elite have dual citizenship. They carry two passports. Whenever situation have been bad, they
Yes.
have run away. This time the situation is sort of a point of no return. I just want to say one thing to Faraz. India had a very difficult situation in 1990s when we were on the verge of bankruptcy. We had a huge balance of payment crisis. Look at the way the course correction was done by India from then onwards to today, where in the last 1 decade we have brought out 25 crore out of multidimensional poverty. So it is not that I'm saying India has no problem, but India has always tried to work on the issues and do course correction, which I think Pakistan is not willing to do. It has to accept that there are political problems, security related problems. Before you can have economic stability, before you can have investments, you need that stability which is not there. So you have to do that before, you don't even have a prime minister for the last 3 weeks.
Right.
So I think it's up to Pakistan to decide. They for a
Yeah.
long time dependent on Middle Eastern countries, Saudi Arab, Qatar, UAE. All three countries have pledged $175 billion investment in India in the next half a decade. Recently, India had a $78 billion deal with Qatar for gas,
Sure.
which means we have
Okay.
worked to develop that thing. We have brought out people from poverty, at the same time created 8 crore new entrepreneurs through Mudra Yojana. So I think Pakistan could have replicated the Indian template,
All
which
right, Patikrit, you've
unfortunately,
made your
because out of
point.
their ingrained
Yes,
hatred,
perhaps
they did
Pakistan
not do
needs a
it.
lot of introspection when it comes to retaining their citizens, and that too the ones who are highly skilled professionals. They need to do a lot of work there back home. But I'll have to wrap it up here. Patikrit and Faraz Saeed, thank you very much to both you gentlemen for joining us on the broadcast and sharing your perspective on this extremely bizarre happening that is happening in Pakistan. But